Well, I've done it 10 times. Actually, no, 11.
Over the hilltop, down in the valley.
Gotcha. That's actually more. I thought you did it 9, so I guess you snuck a few in there when I
Yeah,
wasn't looking.
yeah.
Cool. Cool. So I am here joined by who I refer to as my sensei, Ethan Paulini. He is the producing artistic director of Weather Vane Theater. You are, out of the box, the associate, right?
Artistic director, yeah.
Artistic director. Anything else you'd like to add?
Just no, founder of Ethan Coaches, which is my coaching business that I have many clients, and I adore them dearly, and it's fun to watch people realize their potential, and Kevin's a great example of that.
Yep. You have a storied history with the full Monty, do you not?
Mm-hmm.
How many? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I've done it 10 times. Actually, no, 11. 9 of those times was as an actor. 3 of those times was as a director and or choreographer. So there was one time that overlapped. It was actually the Provincetown production where I was both the choreographer and in the show. So
Gotcha. That's actually more. I thought you did it 9, so I guess you snuck a few in there when I wasn't looking.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So and each time you've played Malcolm, correct?
Yes. Each time when I performed in it, I played Malcolm. Yeah.
Is it the wind over my shoulder? Is it the wind that I hear gently whispering? Are you alone there in the valley? No, not alone, for you walk with me. Is it the wind there over my shoulder? Is it your voice calling quietly over the hilltop, down in the valley? Never alone, for you walk with me.
Malcolm, yes.
Right. I'm reminded. I remember John Owen Jones said about playing. He said he's played Valjean so many times that he does get to a point where he can just sort of make his entrance, and he's Valjean. Over the years of doing it, did you find that Malcolm was just there, just having? How was it? How was approaching it from the first time all the way to the most recent?
Yeah, so as a director, I always appreciate when actors, especially ones that have a history with a role, come in with the ideas, but are also open to open to adapting to the world that I'm hoping to create. And I think that was always a goal for me too, is that even though I knew the things that worked about Malcolm and the things that I appreciated about Malcolm, I also had to play off of what that director wanted and or what those actors were giving me. So for me as an actor, I always pick, and we've talked about this, I pick a voice first and a physicality as well before I even start to dive into like text or material. And so there are things, Malcolm is so well written because the musical actually is just so well written, that finding the physicality for him is really easy because they call him, pigeon chested and sort of hunched and sort of meek, and he's trying to diminish himself. And, I'm 6'1", so that's always a challenge anyway. But that means that every time I played Malcolm, I know how to sort of like find my way into him physically. He's awkward. And then same thing, the voice, it's just about that pitch and that sort of, lovable dweeb, if you will. So I could always bring that as the foundation and then, react to the world that was being created around me.
Right. And what are some examples or of a time when something an actor gave you, or a director especially, gave you a new spin on him? Does anything come to mind?
Yeah, sure. The first time that I did it, for me, I think the biggest counterpoint for Malcolm is always Ethan, the character that he ultimately, no spoilers, but ultimately sort of falls in love with. Because you don't know, that's not how he identifies the whole play. There's no talk about him being at one sexuality or another, but then that happens at the funeral. And so I think that that's always been the most informative, and the Ethans that I've played them opposite have been, younger than me. So there's sort of, in one case they were younger than me, so I had to sort of like, okay, how would this relationship blossom if Malcolm was the older of the two? And then in other situations, Ethan has been older than me, and suddenly it's like not having to make that choice. Is Malcolm discovering this for the first time himself, or has he always known this? And so those are always the biggest changes. And also, I have done it in geographic regions that are very different. I mean, I have done it in Provincetown, which is, that storyline is very celebrated and very exciting. And then I've done it at Arkansas Rep, for example, in Little Rock, Arkansas, which Little Rock has its liberal bastions, but by and large, it's a pretty conservative Bible Belt type community. So having had those are the things that also affect how you play it. The response of the audience, when we go into Kiss, the hearing, in Provincetown, it's a cheer, and in Little Rock, it's an intake of breath and shock.
When evening calls and the air gets colder, when shadows cover the road I am following, will I be alone there in the darkness? No, not alone, and I'll never be.
Shock.
And that's an interesting point. I've heard actors say before that of what influences them as the performance is going on, and like I think it was Dennis O'Hare said, like the audience is another scene partner. How does that impact your performance and still have it make sense, sort of in a
Well,
echo chamber?
Well, I think if we're talking about Full Monty specifically, it's like everyone comes to the Full Monty with a different expectation of their experience, right? Like, it's about letting go, it's about loving yourself, it's about trusting in, it's not about getting naked, it's about trusting that you can do the things that scare you. And so with that being said, there are the people who come there that want to have a party and want to like watch these characters sort of make a fool of themselves. But by the time they get to that point, they realize they're celebrating a triumph of these characters. And then same thing, then there are the people who I think really relate. It's why the show resonates and has had the history that it has, because there are then the people who relate to those fears and are there sort of rooting them on without any expectation of it being about the nudity. I mean, by the end, it really couldn't be less about that. So
Right.
And what is most successful is when there's a mix of that in the audience. I've done it at theaters where they've tried to do like ladies night or LGBTQ night, and like that's fine, but then it takes on a dynamic. I remember when my dad saw one production, it was at a theater and he could only be in town that night, and they had designated it as a ladies night performance, and he was the only man in the audience. And
And
I
then Mr.
remember being
Paulini.
like, okay, well, this is the reality. And I had to ask the box, I was like, is there any way? And they're like, okay. And I'm sure that completely changed his experience of it as well, because they're there to experience it in a different way. But
For
ultimately,
sure.
we always get to the same place, which is what's so satisfying.
Cool. So the big song "You Walk with Me," which you've probably sung hundreds of
Hundreds of
times.
times. Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so I mean, how would you say that changed over time, and what does it mean to you, and did that take on a deeper meaning as time went on?
For sure. So this one's actually pretty easy and pretty personal to answer, because the first time I did it, my mother was alive, and it's a song the character sings at their mother's funeral. And when my mother saw me in it the first time, or maybe it was the second time. I don't remember. I think she saw the first two productions I got to do of it. She said, "I want you to sing that song at my funeral," and she was already sick. And so, of course, I was saying, "Oh, mom, stop! No, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous." But she was like, "No, no, I'm serious. I mean, we know I'm sick. Why don't we just have to face it? And it's a beautiful song, and it's about that." And so in the beginning, it was like, okay, I have this emotional experience, and think about what that is. But after my mother passed, after I had done it three times, and then after doing that, it took on obviously a much deeper dimension. And there were times where I can remember auditioning for it where I couldn't get through the song, and I would have to tell the director why. The first time I auditioned for it was for a production, and it was maybe 4 months after my mom had passed, and I had to sing that song in the callback, and I couldn't get through it, and I had to stop and be like, "This is why. I'm going to be able to get through it in the show if you give me the job, but right now it's a little too fresh." you know
Right. And yeah, my mom has a whole playlist. She's like, sing this at my I'm like, how
yeah,
about well, that's why I sang that at 54, that song. I was like, I have an idea. How
oh
about
yeah,
I sing it while you're alive?
yeah, you'll
But,
enjoy that even more, I'm sure.
yes.
Is it the wind there over my shoulder? Is it your voice calling quietly over the hilltop, down in the valley? Never alone, for you walk with me.
All right, and one quick one before we go. The obvious question, if you don't mind. Full Monty mishaps.
Oh
I
yeah,
know for if you don't mind the
yeah.
so I know not everyone was very happy about that evening, the one I know about, but any Full
hmm
Monty mishaps you care to share?
Yeah, real quick, it was maybe like a second preview, and the first one had been fine, so we were feeling confident as actors. And as we know, you like strip and you get to the last moment, and it's very choreographed in terms of the hat going to the not the unmentionable area, the unhooking of the G string, the showing the G string, and then lifting the hat. And the second preview of this particular production, after having it go off without a hitch, the lights just didn't go. And it was 6 seconds, which feels like no big deal, 6 seconds. But when you're standing there literally like this, watching the audience's face go from like, oh, was pretty demeaning. And then
Yeah.
I also had an issue once where I was directing it where a young actor playing Ethan would not do the nudity, would wear a sock.
Uh-huh.
And I had to like say to this actor, one, you can't see it. By putting a sock on it, you actually draw attention
More.
because a white sock is going to show up in the blackout if you think about it. And
What's
two,
that called? The Streisand effect? You tip more
probably, yeah,
attention than yeah.
exactly. And then two, by not doing it, you are not being collaborative with the people who are willing to like take that leap and take that risk.
Right.
So it ultimately he got there, but I remember him doing like the first two or three performances, and at first I was really angry, and then I turned it into like, let's talk about it. So
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for doing this.
sure.
Great. And I mean, I know, but how can we reach you on social media or see what you have to
Uh,
say?
let's see. EMP413 is my Instagram handle. Ethan Paulini on social media. Ethan Paulini Career and Acting Coach on Facebook. And ethanpaulini.com. We'll take you to all those places.
Awesome. All right. Well, good to talk
Great.
to you as always.
Thanks.
All right. See you. Bye.
Bye bye. Have a good rehearsal.
Thanks.
Over the hilltop, down in the valley, never alone, for you walk with me. Never